We do Altogether Different right here on Channel 4, and that means election coverage too. Hope you've got the supplies, because we are pushing on until 9 a.m. We are live, so it's over to Krishnan Guru-Murthy, Emily Maitlis, The Rest is Politics, and Gogglebox as Britain Decides. You can watch on 4/7 for the signed version. That's on Freeview Channel 49. There is some song language.
The clock is ticking.
The final votes are being cast.
And after all the speeches, all the promises, all the arguing,
It's time to see what Britain decides. Good evening and welcome to what is certain to be a dramatic and indeed historic night. I'm Krishnan Guru-Murthy.
And I'm Emily Maitlis. We've come together for this election night. Thank you so much for joining us too. Well, as you can see, we're just a few minutes away from the polls closing at 10 o'clock. That's when we'll get a major indication of how tonight is going to pan out with our exit poll. Basically, a huge survey of how people voted today, and it should give us a good idea of what the actual results will be.
A lot of pledges from the politicians over the last 6 weeks. Tonight, our manifesto is one you can absolutely rely on. We promise you drama. We promise you all the results that matter, and we promise you the best analysis around.
That's why we've also teamed up with Rory Stewart and Alastair Campbell from The Rest is Politics podcast. We're delighted to say they're with us all night to share their insight and opinions.
Now, over the next 11 hours, and with no commercial breaks, our aim is to help make sense of what tonight means for Britain and for all of us. Having said that, the one thing we're absolutely not allowed to talk about before voting ends is what might actually happen tonight.
If this was the Euros, kickoff is nearly here. This is the pre-match build-up. But the rules say we can't talk about the game. So right now, our team needs to show unparalleled levels of restraint.
Alongside us, Channel 4 News political editor Gary Gibbon, and we're joined exclusively by an unprecedented lineup of politicians, starting off with Harriet Harman, former deputy leader of the Labour Party, who held almost every post as an MP for more than 40 years. Kwasi Kwarteng, who was Liz Truss's Chancellor for fewer than 40 days. And Nadine Dorries, the former Conservative Culture Secretary and a close ally of Boris Johnson. All three have stood down as MPs, but they're stepping up for us tonight.
And for reaction to that exit poll, we also have Sir Vince Cable, the former Liberal Democrat leader, and Widdicombe, who's backing reform, Murray Black, the former deputy leader of the SNP in Westminster, and Azim Zahawi, who's held senior posts under 4 Conservative Prime Ministers.
So I count 8 former MPs and 3 former Strictly contestants here tonight. Will Anne and Vince be dancing with delight? Worth staying up all night just in case. And who better to help us make sense of all the numbers we're going to be bombarded with later than a genuine professor of maths? Hannah Fry is with us.
I certainly am. Thank you. Yes, I am your numbers nerd tonight. And from this corner, we're going to be crunching all of that data from 650 constituencies to give you the swings, the majorities, the best stories from the stats. But of course, there is only one number that really counts in the end, and that is number 10.
Now, you'll hear from lots of politicians tonight, obviously, but we're also the only place where you'll hear from real, actual people too. They're joining us from all over the country. We'll find out who they voted for today and why over the course of the night.
Cathy Newman will join us regularly too. She's escaped the studio. She's in Westminster tonight.
Yes, I'll be bringing you live reaction to that exit poll when it comes out in just a few minutes. And I'll be speaking to all the key players as the drama unfolds in the coming hours.
Now, of course, thousands of people are standing by to count all the votes in town halls, schools and sports centres. We should get the first results around 11:30. It's always a race to try to be the first one to declare, and it's almost always in the northeast. The fastest ever first result came at just 10:43 in Sunderland.
We have correspondents across the land stationed at the counts which matter the most tonight. Before the exit poll drops, let's just check in on our reporters who are with the leaders of the Tories, Labour, Lib Dems and Reform.
I'm in the Prime Minister's constituency of Richmond and Northallerton in North Yorkshire. I'll be following the fortunes of Rishi Sunak and the Conservative Party through the night.
I'm at Holborn and St Pancras, the constituency of Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer. We're expecting a result here at around 2:30 this morning.
I'm at the Liberal Democrats leader Ed Davies count in southwest London, the Kingston and Surbiton seat. We're expecting the results here around 3:15 a.m, but I'll also be tracking the Lib Dems' progress across the country. And I'm in Clacton, where Reform UK leader Nigel Farage is hoping to get elected. I'll be following Reform's progress through the evening.
So, how many of us will actually vote today? Over to Hannah at the big screen.
Yeah, so one of the most important stats that I'm going to be looking at tonight is turnout. How many of us actually voted today? And don't forget, there are still a few minutes left on the clock, just in case any of you haven't made up your minds yet. But each of the party leaders, they have all cast their votes today. Here they are. That should hopefully be at least one in the bag for all of them, we assume. But beyond those guys, there are close to 50 million people who are registered to vote in the UK. They won't have all made it to polling stations, of course, and in previous election, turnout has broadly been heading downwards since the 1950s, when it was about 80%. 45 years ago, when Mrs Thatcher came to power, 76% of people eligible to vote actually did. Turnout isn't always that high, though. In 2001, when Tony Blair won a second term, turnout was just 59.4%. And at the last election, in 2019, a total of 32 million votes were cast. That is a turnout of around 67%. We're obviously going to have to wait and see what happens this year after all of those votes have been counted over the next few hours.
Now, as we've said, this will be the home of the best analysis throughout the night. You have our word on that. But we've also had some armchair experts paying very close attention to the ups and downs of the campaign. Beware, strong language coming up.
Oh, fasten your seatbelts, Jenny.
Let me get the popcorn ready.
I'm dreading this. Here we go.
Fed to the lions tonight,ly, aren't they?
You just don't know what to believe, innit?
Oh, he's calling him out, isn't he?
How can he think that was a good idea?
What does that main cast look like? No party is immune from dickheads. No.
Oh, no.
Not more blows.
I've heard about these men meeting in parks.
Really?
Mm.
Oh, so embarrassing.
I'm all screwed up inside, not it?
Oh, my God. Now that's bad.
I'm sorry for him walking into all these traps. It's outrageous.
This is the one, Simon. This is going to make my decision.
He wouldn't, would he?
Fag packet figures, Pedro.
Ooh, wow. I'd just rather him be honest. My mother, Mary, had a very odd thought, which I'm not sure I agreed with her, but she said that he looked like a sausage.
Well, our first trip to the Gogglebox gang will be just after 11 p.m.
Not long before we see the exit poll, that huge prediction of how tonight is going to shape up. But first, let's hear from our correspondents in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Lots is different, actually, and we will get into what has changed about the boundaries and the constituency names. A lot of constituency names won't sound familiar to you as we read them out, and we'll have to remind you who the previous MPs were. It's going to be quite a big one to try and catch up with, but we are in the final moments, 26, 25 seconds to go before we are allowed to reveal the results of the exit poll, which is based on asking people who, coming out of polling stations, just having voted up and down the country, what they actually did. They're asked to fill in a duplicate piece of paper and put it in a box which can then be tallied up to give us what should be an accurate result within a few seats. So, it is 10 o'clock. Voting has ended in this snap election called by Rishi Sunak just 43 days ago, and we will soon be able to reveal it is a Labour landslide being predicted by the exit poll. The catastrophe for the Conservatives. Keir Starmer becomes the 7th Labour Prime Minister in history.
So, a Labour landslide. This is your voice. This is our country deciding we've had enough. If the exit polls are right, this is a moment of radical, generational change. Keir Starmer will become the first person to lead Labour from opposition to government in 27 years. And that, for many of our viewers tonight, will be a virtual, maybe an actual lifetime.
So we're trying to
bring you those numbers and the breakdown as we just digest that and look at the faces of some of our guests around the table and indeed in the audience now. And we will tell you exactly what the party has. We are hearing that Labour has got 410 seats. Conservatives are on 131.
Oh, wow.
The Lib Dems are on 61 seats. The Reform Party are on 13.
That's extraordinary.
An extraordinary number for a new party. The SNP is on
SNP
10
disaster.
seats. So we will remind you of those numbers now as we're getting them up on the screen for you. Labour on 410, Conservatives on 131. The Lib Dems have beaten their best record, 61. Reform, an outstanding result for a brand new party, 13 seats tonight. And the SNP has been absolutely devastated with a result that leaves them with just 10 seats.
So correct me if my maths is wrong, but I think that's a Labour majority of 170. And that is very comparable to 1997. It's
a bit less.
Yeah, a bit less than 97. It's not as good as 97.
It's just a little bit under where 1997 was.